The struggle I had was self-belief. You lose your self-belief. If you don't have the people there to support you, I had my family and my mother, my wife. I didn't have that support, that positive energy. I don't think I would have done it. You can be in a very self-defeatist mind frame. You can feel the exam is fixed. Examiners are out to get you. The system's crooked against you. You can think these things. That's not reality. And you have to overcome those thoughts. Didn't pass this exam because I didn't do X, Y, and Z.
My guest today is Dr. Salman. He passed his MRCGP exam on his fifth attempt. Welcome on the show, Dr. Salman. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for asking, Dr. Erwin.
I'm really glad that you reconnected. Recently, you got back in touch telling me that you've managed to pass your exam.
Thank you so much.
Tell us a little bit about yourself throughout training, what happened.
I mean, I graduated from Prague, Czech Republic. So I am an IMG, but European graduate. And I entered training in 2018, 2017, 2018, around that time. I entered into training, and the AKT exam was tough, and I got through it on my third attempt. It took me a year to pass that exam, but thank God I passed it. And then, then 2020 rolled by, and unfortunately, I got COVID in late 2020 before I was going to sit my first attempt of the RCA. I'd planned to sit it in November 2020. So I was off work for about 6 weeks, and I had the brain fog, and I was very unwell with COVID. Actually, I'm very happy I'm still here. I'm still here. But and then I did my RCA exams, and I kept on getting marks of 140, 139, 138. So I was quite close, but I wasn't there, and it kept on. And I never understood why I was failing. Really, I just didn't understand. I thought my cases were good, and I just thought, yeah, it's pot luck, but it's not really luck. Really, that exam is, they want to see your skills really, and that's once I kind of addressed that, and I realized that that's what they want, that it's not an exam that's deliberately there to trip you up, then things started falling into place.
What exactly that you had to change so that you get past the fifth attempt, Salman?
I think my language was very important, and how you speak with a patient. And we're actually more doctor centric than we think, and it's not our fault. It's the training. It's medical school. It's working your first jobs in as a house officer. You don't learn patient-centric consultation skills. You learn basically something, whatever's quick and efficient for you to clerk your patient, or when you're seeing your patient on your ward, on the ward rounds. So we don't actually, I think we're not cognizant enough about patient-centric consulting, and I think that's what really I was able to finally get a grasp of, and actually change, and that kind of, it was like dominoes, and it just all fell into place, really.
So tell us, in terms of your consultation, how did you change it in terms of the way that you were more patient-centered?
I think the most important thing is letting your patient speak. Don't interrupt them. Okay, treating your patient, treating your patient very well is important. Their ice is important. Why are they here? What's bringing them today? I like today. I saw patients, and I, with using the right skills, using ice, you can find out what's really deep down why they're there. And I think sometimes people aren't too aware, that's how they should approach their patients. Also, I think certainly how you communicate with your patients is very important. Think of them like family. I think that's one advice that I'd really give, which is think of it like your own family member, or someone you know really well, and that you're trying to help them. Of course, you don't cross over to becoming over familiar, but you kind of have to develop that trust with your patient, and I think that's so important.
What you're saying here is to be able to genuinely care for that person. Tell us, how did you go about doing that? Because sometimes IMGs struggle to do that.
I think generally, I think my communication wasn't that bad to start with, because my interpersonal skills weren't an issue, but I think it's using ICE and then bringing that ICE into your management plan. That's kind of the most important thing to do, so that your patient is on board and they're happy, And I think, and as well, that you're a safe consultant and you're safety netting appropriately. I think that's important. I think that's the key thing that I think results into patient-centric management, because I think a lot of candidates, who don't succeed in the exam, then their management, they can be absolutely patient-centric in the data gathering, but when they come to the management, this is go do this. That's not what the patient wants. That's not what the examiners want, and that's what you have to kind of realize, that okay. And your language and the way you communicate with your patients is very important. So you put them, so Mr. Think, I can see that you're very concerned about this, and I do agree that that is something to worry about. But looking at from assessing you today, it just seems that I couldn't really see X pathology, and I feel quite reassured. What do you think about that? And you're bringing them in, and then you're trying to bring them on board so you get a mutual agreed management plan, and that's what I think the key is.
So many times I've seen GP trainees, they're trying to get the shared management, but they don't have the mutual understanding. So when you have that mutual understanding, when you're on the same page as your patient, then it's easier for you to develop a shared management with your patient. Tell us then, in terms of your mindset, how did you do that inner work to build back confidence? Failing it once is quite demoralizing, but failing it 4 times is even worse.
You need good support. That's the main thing. So this is where your trainer becomes very important. Your trainer's support. And luckily, I was at a very supportive practice. I worked at practices which aren't that supportive. The practice that I worked at were very supportive, and they looked at my consultation skills through recordings, and they were able to critique things that I could do better, and then you take that cumulative knowledge, and then you put that into your own consultation skills. So this isn't an exam that you can do yourself. I was always the sort of person who's like, I can pass my exam myself. I don't need other people. But you do need people with this exam. You need to be a team. So your team helps. Other people who are sitting the exam with you, who you can bounce off ideas, they're really important. If you've got people. I also joined, when I was waiting for my 5th attempt, I joined an IMG group, and it was a lot of African students, and a lot of, and IMGs from all over the world, and they were practicing consultation skills. And then I would observe. I didn't even really speak much because I was quite confident in my data gathering. I was like, I'm borderline. I don't really need to speak. I didn't feel I didn't need to speak, but I learned so much by listening to them and how they communicated and how they, they spun their management plan. And I think that's what I found very, very helpful, and I incorporated that into my consultation skills, and it really helped. But there are a lot of resources out there, and we can have a chat about that a bit further on.
So yeah, there is great value in observing other people and seeing how they are consulting. That helps you to understand when somebody else is observing what they're seeing, what they're picking up, and then you develop your own consultation. When it came to feedback then, what type of feedback were you getting in the previous attempts, and then what did you do about this feedback to change things?
The biggest feedback that I got from my RCA was my clinical management, and that's where I was getting 41 marks, which is not sufficient to pass, And the other thing is also your case selection for the RCA is very important. So knowing what is a good case, you eventually get a feel for it for the RCA. SCA is a completely different kettle of fish, and I don't know too much about the SCA, but I assume it'll be something more on the lines of the CSA, which was before before the pandemic. So I think that would be that's going to probably have a similar approach, and I hope people there'll be more success with the SCA, because the RCA tripped up quite a lot of people.
The good thing about this SEA is that you won't have to worry about getting the patients, because the patient would be there, and you don't have to worry about what cases to select. But the problem is, so people who have anxiety and struggle, they might feel a bit overwhelmed with the pressure of having to do everything in one day. But let's come back to your preparation then. The way that you prepared and the resources that you've used. Tell us a bit about what were really useful in your preparation.
So a few things. I did the talc series of modules, which are quite lengthy, but you do pick up some useful tips. One of the biggest tips I learned from that was let the patient talk. They'll tell you most of the things. Your data gathering doesn't need to be nebulous and in detail. It just needs to be of a sufficient level that shows that you're a safe practitioner. And I think anyone can do that, really. It's not difficult. And I think what happens is the data gathering tricks people because they think that they think they overemphasize the data gathering and they lose time for the clinical management. So then their clinical management's rushed and it's doctor centric, and then they don't pass. So I think letting the patient talk, and they will tell you most of their problems. They will let you talk. Just they will just let you know what their issues are, and I think that's really important.
Absolutely. And I think this is very applicable for the SCA exam because the simulator is going to have an opening statement and they've got their storyline. If you interrupt them and you're not encouraging them to talk in the golden minute, then you'll have to work harder to ask more questions to get the information out. So you want to encourage the patient to talk and listen attentively. Are you feeling anxious about the SCA preparation? Maybe you're not getting constructive feedback, you don't know whether you're doing the right thing. If you're looking for one-to-one support, I'd love to help you. Click the link down the description below to book a call with me to see how I can help you to pass your exam. When it came to recording, did you do a lot of recording then when it came to that?
Oh yeah, I recorded a lot, but I recorded smartly. So I knew what kind of cases were RCA-able, you know? So, if it's a follow-up, it's they want to know about a report or, or blood results, they're not going to be sufficient, and unless there's an angle. And it's looking for that angle. And once you find that angle, then that makes a good case. And I used a lot of mental health cases because mental health, mental health, it was one of my strengths, but for other people it might be a weakness. So people avoid those cases. But for the RCA, from what I spoke to a lot of people, mental health was really helpful to get through the RCA.
So tell us, if you're taking a mental health history, what were your game plans, Salman?
Let the patient talk, lots and lots of empathy with the patient. It's difficult, they're going through a tough time, and you have to connect that bridge. You can't be just. I've listened to some GP trainees consultations on mental health, and it was dead. It was emotionally dead by the GP trainee. And I'm just thinking, if I had a mental health problem, I'd like someone to listen to me, and I'd like someone to understand me. And I think that's one thing that's key. And then the data gathering is very easy. You know the red flags. Kind of the biological model for depression. Those certain questions that you need to ask, but that stuff's easy. But the difficult thing is breaking the ice with the patient and getting them to trust you. Once you do that, and once they have faith in you as a consultant, then that kind of helps in terms of the management plan. They're more likely to listen to your management plan, and follow it through. So that's the important thing with mental health is you keep your patient kind of clued in with you. That's what I find important with mental health cases.
If you remember, what type of cases did you submit?
I submitted some really interesting cases. I had a menorrhagia case where a patient wanted to be on I started them on, I think, on a 3 monthly combined pill, which is what they wanted. I had another case. I had self-harm, 14-year-old self-harming. I had also another patient who was taking drugs and self-harming. I had I had a case of a patient who was who had a like an elevated fit test. So breaking the news to them and then explaining what would happen. Their son was also there, so that added that complexity. Even though it was a blood result, it was a result case. I still had that element of complexity to it. So it's just choosing those correct pay. And I think I chose probably maybe 5 mental health. I had a young girl who left home, and another young chap who was in a relationship that broke down, and he was severely depressed. So there was all those kind of cases that I picked, and those cases came. It was funny because by the time of beginning of September, I probably picked up 1 or 2 more cases. I had enough recording by then. I didn't, I got to a point where, I was recording for nearly 4 months, and you get to a point where you're fatigued from recording, because recording is a bit stressful, to be honest, because it's that continuous pressure and hoping to get that right case for you. But sometimes the cases, I learned that the cases, you don't make the cases make you. They come to you. It's not about you chasing them. And that's the thing that I learned, that I didn't need to chase my tail to find a case. They just came. If they ever reintroduce the RCA exam, that's the advice that I'd give. Just be relaxed. The cases will come. Look at other people's lists, see what's interesting that might be helpful for you, and take that, really.
It's quite exceptional that you got this fifth attempt. Tell us more about what were the struggles you had.
The struggle I had was self-belief. You lose your self-belief. And if you don't have the people there to support you, I had my family, and my mother, my wife, I had my trainers. I didn't have that support, that positive energy. I don't think I would have done it. That you can be in a very self-defeatist mind frame. You can feel the exam is fixed, the examiners are out to get you. The system's crooked against you. You can think these things. That's not reality. That's just your own kind of own self-defeat and your own thoughts. And you have to overcome those thoughts and think, look, I didn't pass this exam because I didn't do X, Y, and Z. I should have done my clinical management better. Once you acknowledge that, that's the biggest hurdle.
Yeah, I think that's an element that those who do well afterwards actually have to come to that time when they're talking to themselves, accepting the responsibility, then be able to unlock the next phase.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It's about your development. I remember we had a GP training day, yeah, and they made us do this exercise where we were all in a line, and then there was like a finish line, and then we all had to stand in different positions, and it was just a realization that we're on that journey to get to that finish line, and we'll get there, and 98%, I think, of people pass the RCGP. Most people will pass it. So, and they're IMGs, they have difficulties, some even have language barriers, but they overcome them and they pass they pass their exam. So it's important that you feel that you believe that it's possible. If you don't believe it, that's where you're going to really have difficulties. And I had to overcome self-doubt and self-defeat. Once you do that, you'll succeed.
Challenging the stories that you're telling yourself is very important, because sometimes you could be in your own way, and that's the first thing that you need to do. Believing that you can pass it in your mind, and then you achieve it.
Exactly. Visualization is very important, but also just self-belief in yourself and being positive and being kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Don't be harsh on yourself. I was sometimes very harsh on myself. And I think that's something that I've learned, that you have to be really kind to yourself and encourage yourself and nurture yourself. And then you will grow, It's like a plant. You give it love, you nurture your plant, and your plant grows. If you don't, it won't grow. And I think that's something that people should take, who are in difficulties. That's what they should kind of focus on, and really have self-belief that they can do it.
So, in terms of your preparation, then, when it came to having coaching, what went through your thought process?
Well, I mean, coaching, I had coaching with you. I had coaching with some other people as well. I even had a medical actor, you know, the coaching was helpful, you know. But I think what I found really useful was groups and of people who are in the same kind of situation as you, you know, learning from each other. It's very important. I think that's one thing I learned. I did that for about 2 months. I think it was January and February and March last year. I did that for the people who were doing the April RCA this year. Sorry, not last year. This year, you know. So you know, I think that was something that really helped me. And then um, and I think if if you're doing this exam and thinking you're going to just do it on your own, that's probably one of the first steps where you'll mess up. So being humble enough to listen to other people and take their advice, I think. But if it's appropriate, sometimes some advice isn't appropriate. But if the advice is appropriate, doing it that way. So that was one of the game changers I did. There were other people I utilized. I utilized Nigel Gimes' resources. I utilized also Bradford VTS Circle. They had some, Dr. Ram did some videos. I found that useful. I just went through it once on a weekend. I found that useful. Dr. Beach Payne, who does courses, I found her very helpful. She's got a nice handbook. But I think the best, in terms of my consultation skills, the thing that helped me the most was actually one of my trainers, okay, his name's Dr. Isra Khan, and he's actually got a book, The 10-Minute Consultation. I can't remember the full title. Apologies, Dr. Khan, but you can get it on, it's got a foreword by Roger Neighbor. It's a really good book. It helps you to get kind of your whole consultation succinct. I made my template based on that. I read his book maybe 4 times, just before I started recording and during recording. By then I knew it and I had my template, so everything would. I had that template in my mind and I could utilize that. The other things I found useful, Matt Smith, his videos were fantastic. He really helps you in terms of, I felt, communication. I also use those RCGP blue cards. They're helpful-ish, but things have changed a lot since they were first made, so they are a bit ancient, unfortunately, but they're still useful. I still think they're useful. What else did I found? And talc was what I used. So that's basically it.
So it sounds to me that you've used a variety of resources and you've learned from each of those. There's a lot of great medical educators who are doing a fantastic job. And it's good that people learn from various people and see what resonate with them. It sounds to me that that group element was really helpful. I think in the RCA period, a lot of GP trainees were just doing their own recording and quite isolated. Now with the SCA, things have changed a lot. A lot of people are going back into groups in their VTS. And I think having that camaraderie and group dynamic really helps so that everyone progresses together.
Yeah, I've always been a lone wolf. That's always the way I've done things, but I had to change. And I think, if things are not working, change. That's the thing that's a key lesson. If it's not working for you, why is it not working? And then what are you going to do to change it? It's like a PDP. It's the same kind of it's the same kind of idea. But you don't need to do formulas PDP, but finding your way and finding and listening to people, being in a group. So sometimes I found it very frustrating to be in a group. Sometimes I remember I was in one group and there was a mental health they were practicing and they were taking 20 minutes and I just went on the mic and go, that's what are we doing? 20 minutes for a mental health case. We're not going to pass this exam if we do this. And and they apologize to people who are who are acting, the doctor and patient. But it's that idea, you need to get a group of people who want to succeed, who are positive and want to help each other. And I think that's having a team behind you is important. Having a lot of support from your supervisor. I was very blessed to have really supportive supervisors at my practice, and they've even offered me locum work at their practice, which I'm really happy about. And I'd love to go back because I love my patients there. They ask about me. So but that's the kind of thing I learned. Being in a supportive environment, having lots of love, is key to getting through this exam if you're struggling.
I think you've touched through a lot of really insightful practice that GP trainees who are preparing for the exam could use. So, last piece of advice for anybody who's watching this, who's actually learned a lot from your stories, what would you like to tell them?
Believe in yourself, okay? Be positive. Don't let that self-doubt creep in. Keep focused, keep organized, and you'll do it. You'll smash it. Believe in yourself.
What are you looking forward now?
Well, I'm looking forward. I'm working on family practice. So I'm looking to support my family, get a little bit of stress off them, as GP, so they can enjoy life more. I'm looking also for myself to kind of, be in the community, meet different people. I met patients that I knew when I was a very young child through my dad. My dad was a GP, so I meet the same people 30 years later. It's wonderful having those kind of relationships with people, and that's the thing that makes general practice, I think, really enjoyable.
Yeah, that's the beauty of general practice. Thank you very much, Dr. Salman. So if you found this video useful, let us know what you think. Click down the comment section and share what your thoughts are. If there's anything that you found helpful in your preparation, write it down. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.